everybody, welcome back. Let's buckle in and let's get ready to create a Canvas app consuming our custom connectors. So let's start with a page design and a blank canvas so we can literally get a blank screen. And I want to put on the screen for you a couple of, this probably is not all inclusive, but I'm going to say it's at least a good representation of the functions that we're going to be covering. All right, so apparently the formatting got screwed up. Let's change this out. Sorry about the formatting delay. In any event, here are the 6 key functions that we're going to work through in this video. We're going to use the custom connector actions. We have 2 of them. The ones that we brought over into the custom connector, just to rehash, is going to be the models as well as chat, and we're going to be using those actions today. Obviously, we'll be setting some variables along the way. We're going to create a collection towards the end and clear collect and some funkiness in there. And then, of course, we're going to have to deal with something called an untyped object. This is where parse.json is going to come into the rescue. And then we need to take a table of data and we need to put it into JSON. And this will be, again, towards the end. So I want to show you a couple of things here. There is a completions endpoint that you can use with LM Studio. But I find that if you do chat, you can use it for both completions as well as chat. And why make another action in the custom connector? It's just one more thing to go wrong. And so I try to simplify, and we can do completions as well as chat in one fell swoop. So we're going to start off with the completions variation of this. And then depending on how time gets away from us, I may break this video into 2 parts. Otherwise, I'll try to jam it all up into one. All right, so let's begin by adding our custom connector. Come down to connectors, look for LM Studio. There's LM Studio. So now we have the connector. Let's start off by adding a button. Let's start off by adding another label. Actually, let's roll this label up here. Let's make this one pop and stand out with some hideous colors. Let's align it to the top. Let's move it here. Let's move this over there. And let's start with something extremely simple, because this is where things can get really funky. So we do LM Studio dot chat. This will get us where we need to be. Now, as soon as I hit the open parentheses, remember, when I created the connector for the body, I didn't provide the full payload because the custom connector would have then tried to create all of these. And it's fine, but the messages is an array for the value, and so it gets really hard. So since we already know this, it's really easy to take this and just type it as text into our body. However, I can't just do the open parenthesis, choose body, and then paste in that information in here. Otherwise, it's going to get really, really ugly because a couple of things are happening here. So if I just close that out, I'm getting all kinds of issues and errors and things going on. It's talking about indentation. At this point, the errors that are here aren't even really valid. So let me walk you through what actually needs to happen here, and we'll cover this in a little bit more detail and try to break this down for you. Okay, so normally we need to provide some sort of a string, and then we would close up the bracket here for this record. And then what we would do is we would close this out for the function of chat or for the action within this, okay? So let's start with the first message, the untyped object. This is where the parse.json comes into play. That's the function I listed right here. And a parse.json takes in a string. And in order to do this, what we'll need to do is come back over to here. And I'm going to remove these double quotes temporarily. I'm going to do parse JSON, open parenthesis. I want to stop here and look, a JSON string to process. So the key word is it's a string, but it's also JSON. Okay, so I'm going to do an open and close parenthesis so we have that there. And we know it needs to be a string, so we'll put our double quotes in there. So now all of our error messages have gone away. So since the error messages have gone away, let's just copy this entire or cut this entire function out, and let's put this inside of a variable so that we have it, and we'll call this vtemp. We'll call it vResponse, and we'll paste that back in, and then we'll give a closing parenthesis for the set function. Okay, so this being said, let's come down here and let's format this text so this breaks out a little bit. And now we have this parse JSON. So what we need to do now is provide JSON in this string, and there's a problem because we need the quotes to remain as they are in this example. So this is what we're trying to do here. So in order to illustrate this, I've already done this in advance, but let's do it again. So let's do Control F and let's do a replace. What we need to do is we need to replace these single quotes with double quotes. And the reason for that is in Power Apps, if you need to have an actual string literal show up inside of your, whatever it is you're doing, I'm having a hard time finding an edge, then you need to escape it. And in order to escape it, you need to put a label, and let's make sure that we have text around this. So I'm going to put a quote like this, and lo and behold, there's a problem. And you're like, what's going on? So in order to specify a string, all strings need to be inside of the quotes. But if I want a string literal, I need to put double quotes. And see, now I have the double quotes here. And then whenever I put in here, in between, I get it to show up like this, okay? So you notice there's a set of 3 of these. So if you do 1 versus 3, not really necessary or what matters, but in order to get this string literal to show up like this, I need to put the single quote as double quotes, and then I get it to come through. And this gets a little bit gnarly because we're inside of a parse JSON function which takes a string. But to keep things simple in your head, this is also a string, and these double quotes are providing a quote literal in the string, so we have to escape it. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, so if it doesn't, do some reading, additional documentation. Just know that you're going to need to replace these singular strings with these double strings, and I've done it. We've replaced it all. I'm going to take all of this as is. I'm going to copy it out. Well, let's get rid of this text value here. Let's go back to the button. And then inside of our parse JSON, I went a little fast there. Put your cursor literally right here in the middle of these, and you're going to paste that string in, okay? And lo and behold, life is good. Everything looks fine. And the variable is called vResponse. So let's go over here and replace this with vResponse, okay? Dot, and now we're like, what do we need to do? How do we get this out of here? This is where knowing JSON is really going to help you out, okay? This is the return object. So again, anything in these curly braces is a record or a singular row in a table in say a spreadsheet. And then inside of that, all of these are columns inside of there. Now, this column, its value has a square bracket. Again, anything in square brackets is a table. So first we need to deal with this table, because inside of this table there are it's basically a nested table inside of this record. And we need to get to this table and deal with it. And we need to get the first record. Now there's always, we know this, only one record. But unfortunately, when you specify a table can have one or many records. And because it doesn't know that, we need to help Power Apps along, and we need to tell it we want the first record in here of the choices table. So the first thing we're going to do is choose choices. And we're going to copy this off. We're going to select everything, cut it out, and we're going to use the first function. And this is not listed over here, but I should have listed it there because it's a key function. And inside of this choices table, I am going to get the first record out of it. Now I need to specify the column. Let's go back to the JSON here and let's see what this looks like. So here inside of the table, let's scroll down. What I'm looking for is this content. This is what I want. I want this text of content, but it's inside of the table here, and I got to go to messages and then content to get to that string. So you just dot your way through it. Dot message, dot content. Okay, so now when I hit this button, it's going to capture out the result. It's going to get me the first row because there's only one row, and it's going to give me inside of the choices table the column message, and then inside of that is another record which has a column called content. So in any event, I'm going to hit the button here, and now I'm getting it yelling at me, telling me that something is unexpected token. All right, stop. Something's going on here. Let's figure out what it is. Here, parse JSON error, unexpected token M model llama not valid JSON. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Got a bunch of errors happening. Let's see what we've got. Oh, we're in the wrong object. Wait. So let's make sure that the return value came through. Let's look at our variables. So here's the response, and I've got an error here. So this is blank. So we've got a problem with what we just sent through. So let's take a look at this. It is complaining about MetaLlama. That looks good. That looks good. That all of this looks good. Let's see here. Body. Parse JSON. We've got the chat. We've got parse JSON. So all of that looks good there. What is the error again? Let's click the button and see what we get. Parsing JSON error. Expected token M. It's not very helpful because I'm not getting the full error. Model MetaLlama is not valid JSON. So let's do this. Let's use this lesser known advanced tools, and let's look at Live Monitor. And we can use Monitor to drill down and see some more information as to what's going on. So let's once again click the button, which produces the error. So now we can come over here and we can look at this parse JSON because this is where the error is coming. So let's select this row and let's expand this. And for the data, let's open this up. And here we get the full error message, but we still get M. Token M, and it's complaining about the model. So something went wrong. Let's see what might have gone wrong here. Yeah, that's a problem here. I think I see the problem. It's complaining that this doesn't have the double quotes, I bet. Okay. So let's go back and let's look at what we've got here. So turbo instruct, let's do quote, 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 quote. Let's come over here, let's clear the monitor so we don't have any errors. And once again, hold the Alt button and hit go. And we got some dancing ants and we got a response. And we've got no errors. We've got pretty much success across the board. So that's how you use Monitor when you're having problems. And the reason I intentionally included this error for you is so that you could see how to troubleshoot this, because this is really, really hard. In regular traditional code, it's much easier to deal with it because there's tools for this, but low code is not really meant for pro code type of stuff. And when we're dealing with this level of difficulty, we're dealing with pretty much pro code inside of a low code environment. So this is really, again, this is an advanced topic and advanced subject. So hopefully this doesn't blow you away too much, but I did want to show you that there is power in the Power Platform to do some really cool and advanced stuff. So once you get your skill level to a certain point, you can start doing this really, really cool stuff inside of the Power Platform. And this is how you use these type of tools to kind of help you figure out what's going on. All right. So this is an example of the completions. So this is a question and a response, right? So I asked the question, introduce yourself, and then I got a response. But how do I then turn this into a chat? So let's take this in baby steps, because if I try to just take you right into chat, it's going to completely blow your mind, because I want you to see this piece by piece. So let's work with the existing request that we're sending in, and let's make this more dynamic, because right now I've hand coded all of this crap in here and this isn't good. So let's make this dynamic. Let's make the model. So let's do a drop down. So why do I want to do a drop down? Well, I want to do a drop down because there's another item here called models. And this returns a record which has one column called data, and its nested value is a table. And if I get each one of these IDs, all I need is that name. That's really all I'm looking for, is just the name. So let's make another, well, let's do a drop down. Let's do drop DRP. So we'll add this. That should be drop down 1, and it is. Let's make this a little bit more dynamic. Let's move the button. Let's move this stuff over. And we'll use this one for the model. So what are we going to do? LM Studio dot models. And all we have to do is open and close the bracket to get this function working, okay? But there's a problem. I have this thing called list. And why do I have it? Because if I look over in the right side panel for properties, the value is set to object. And you see I have two columns to deal with. I have the data column and I have the object column. And because the object column is very simple, it just tried to choose that. And that's why I'm seeing list in my dropdown, because it's chose the object. And you can see over here, this is object. And you can see in the dropdown, if I hold the Alt key down, the only thing I get here is list. I don't want this. What I want to do is I want to use the dot, and I want to use the data. Okay, and inside of the data, I get a table. And then honestly, all I want is this ID to show up for the list. So let's click on the drop down, and for value, let's change object now to ID. Now when I hold the Alt key down, I get all of the models that's in here. Now there's a problem. This text embedding model is used in LM Studio when I'm using the built-in interface that they have. I have the ability to upload and attach documents, and what it does is it chunks the document down, but it does this thing called vector embeddings. But in the context of my Power App, this is going to cause me a major problem. I don't want users to select this. So what I need to do is I need to filter this out. Now this should be standard normal Power App stuff. So I'm going to grab this, copy it off to the clipboard, because I want to use the filter function, and I'm going to provide what I pasted or what I copied out as the ID, right? And now what I want to do is I want to filter on the ID where it doesn't have that embedding. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab this word embeddings. I don't need the full, I'm going to do a portion of it. I'm going to use the not, because the not function is going to tell me very specifically, I don't want this value in ID, and that's going to basically filter out the list so that if any, you may have more than one embeddings model. If you do, this will not only filter out the one, it'll filter out all of them, because, and the assumption is that in the model name, embeddings is part of the model name, okay? And usually they are. So this is a really good way of limiting the list, making sure you only have the proper models. And so now that I've got this done, I've got drop down 1. How do I make this dynamic? Okay, this is where things get a little squirrely. Now I'm going to try to go a little slow so you understand. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to get rid of this double quote and the static value. Okay, now remember, I am inside of a string. So the first thing I need to do, I'm gonna work this backwards, and then we're gonna flesh it out so that you can understand what's going on, because if I do it step by step, it'll be clearer to your mind's eye, because again, this is like really squirrely, because again, we're inside of a string, so this gets nutty. So inside of a string, if we want to concatenate something, and that's essentially all we're doing is concatenating, I need to escape the concatenation with a single quote. I need to add some ampersands, and now I need to do my drop down 1 dot selected text dot value. In this case, the value is the one that's selected. Okay, so now all of this looks good. but there's a problem. Remember, this value, if I come over here, this value, when it was originally put in, and let's go back to, what did I do here? Yep. Well, actually, I can just show you right here. This value, how this is an error. I have to put quotes around this to make the value go away. And so when this didn't have quotes around it, it was bad JSON. And that's exactly what I've done here. I've created a problem for myself inside of the Power App. And as a result of that, all I've done is created this static value, because remember, I used a single quote to break out of the string. But the problem is I need that quote. Remember what I did earlier? I did quote, quote. So quote, quote gives me a string in a literal quote inside of this, I keep saying quote, double quote inside of the string while still allowing me to break out. So think of it this way. Let me put some spaces around it. This will make what I just said a little bit clearer, because I know this is confusing. This provides me a literal double quote in the string because I'm escaping it. And then this breaks me out of the string so I can concatenate in some dynamic content. And then this string is the, where I broke out. I'm breaking back into the string. And then I literally need a double quote there. So I had to escape it with a double quote. So what I usually do is I just put 3 quotes together. And that's the key. Remember, you need 3 quotes and you need 3 quotes. And then you can concatenate this in a more dynamic way. So now, let's go over here to LM Studio. Let's go over to here where the logging is. Let's clear the logs. Let's eject all of these models, because I want to show you this next part. Okay, so we've got no models loaded. And here we are. I'm going to hold the Alt key down. We're going to leave the 8-beat model instruct. We'll hit go, and it's doing its thing. The ants are dancing across, and we just saw the text change. Okay, let's pop over to LM Studio, and we can see we loaded up the 3.18 billion instruct. Okay, so we've got that there. Let's clear the logs. I'm going to leave this here. Let's change the model to lava. Hit the button, and dancing ants again along the top. We got a new hello, my name is Mary. And now look at this. We have lava and meta llama all done dynamically. So we know that the dynamic portion is working really, really well. So let's break this down and let's take this a little bit further. All right, go back to the button. What else can we do? Well, we've got this temperature. Let's make this temperature a dynamic one. So in order to accomplish that, let's use a slider. And there's a reason for it, and I'm going to show you how all this comes together. All right, I'm going to use this slider down here like this. Okay, see this show value? This is bad for this use case. I'm going to leave it on because I'm going to show you why it's bad. But let's look at the minimum and the maximum. Okay, so I'm going to set the minimum to 1, and I'm going to set the maximum to 10. And then I'm going to change the slider. You see this? It's a whole number, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a problem though. The value that I need to provide this thing is a float. And it goes from basically 0.1 to just 1, okay? And because this is a float, which could also be an integer in this case, what we're going to do is I'm going to change the value for this. Let's do it like this. Let's add another label, and I will put the label right here so we can just see it, okay? And I'll set the value to slider 1.value. Okay, and so now we've got a number. I don't really need it this big. Let's bring this over like this. All right, so now as I hold the Alt key down and I move the slider, I get this. But the problem is I need a fractional piece. So if I have numbers 1 through 10, if I divide it by 10, the value that is. So let's divide this, and I'm doing a math operation here, and I want you to notice that it says data type is number. If this was text, I couldn't do it, but just make sure that you always make sure that this is a numerical operation. So dividing a whole number 1 through 10 by 10, we get we're basically taking a number, dividing it down by tenths. So the net result is, on the low end, we get 0.1, and on the top end, we just get 1. So as this slider goes through, it's always going to be the way that we need it. So the problem is, if I take the values straight out of the slider, it's going to be a problem. So I need to do this math operation right here. So I'm going to copy this code out, because down here in the button, we need to provide this number here. Now I want you to notice something. Let's go back over to the JSON. In JSON, valid JSON, a float doesn't have any quotes around it. And because it doesn't have any quotes around it, we don't need to use the 3 quotes that we did up here, because this was a string. This literally is a number. So in this instance, and only this instance, do we need to break out of our string and provide our actual value like this. But we need to use our concatenation to make these errors go away. And now we have a dynamic value that is an integer. Again, I'm only using the single quotes because I'm breaking out of the string and I'm providing an integer value. And valid JSON, I don't need a quote around it, okay? So that's why this works. Now, I would do the same thing here with false and true. False and true is Boolean, and Boolean values in valid JSON also doesn't have a quote. So if you were going to do that, stream value, like you could put a toggle or something in here if you wanted to do that. I don't want the user to change it because I don't want it to stream in. Power Apps doesn't really know how to handle that. That's good for coding, but for Power Apps, just leave it to false. Okay, and so now that we have this, let's test this one more time, and let's change it to 0, 1 to make it not too creative, and then let's crank it all the way up to make it super creative. Okay, so now we've got varying degrees of creativity based on our slider. All right, so now you've seen us take this as far as making this somewhat dynamic. Let's now take this a step further. So this is where it says introduce yourself. Introduce yourself is a string. So we're going to have to do that triple quote thing here. But what I want to provide is a way for the question to the AI to be from the user. So let's do text input. And let's maybe make this a little bit larger. Do something like this, right? Oh, we lost our value over here. Let's bring that down. And text input 1. This is fine. Let's align it to the top though. Where do we do that? Edit, single line. Let's do multi-line. Okay, so that brings it to the top. So now let's go in and change our text from introduce yourself. Let's get rid of this. Let's do 3 quotes there, three quotes here, a couple of ampersands, and in the middle of that, let's do what is it called? Text input. Text input 1 dot text. Okay, now the question is controlled by us in the user interface. I can do something like hello, and then we'll leave the creativity high. That's fine. Hello there, how can I help you today? Who is the... Now, based on the model, when it was created, at the time it said it was Trump, but currently it's Joe Biden. Trump did just get reelected based on the current date. Here in a couple of weeks, actually, he'll be re-inaugurated again. But in any event, I just wanted to show you that there is a delay and a hallucination based on the model and when it was created. But more importantly, the main takeaway from here is not probably ask the wrong question here. So it's such a divisive question. But in any event, I wanted to just show you that you can type in anything. Like this probably would have been much better to use. Okay, so with that being said, tell me a joke. There we go. Why was the math book so sad? Now, this is where we can adjust the creativity and we may get better type of jokes and things of that nature. Or if we don't like that model at all, we can switch it around to another one. But the point is, we now have a completions model set up just like this. So if all you need to do is create something completion where you want generative AI to help assist somebody in the Power App, and you want it to do something creative in scope to whatever it is that the app's doing, you can do something very creative like this. You could also change, all of this out to OpenAI or Azure OpenAI, because it all works very much the same. So all of the lessons that you learned here today, you'll be able to do a lot of cool stuff with this. All right, so this video has gotten pretty long. I'm going to do probably 3-part video. I'm going to end the video here. We're going to come back. We're going to pick up. And this time we're going to go from a completions approach, which is what this is, and we're going to convert this into a full-blown chat. Okay? We'll see you in the next video.